People care more about good value performance when buying laptops, but apart from that, I think you should also notice if the screen is worth the money. This ASUS VIVOBOOK S15 has a good value screen, less than $800, high resolution, high refresh OLED, it's even factory calibrated. Then how's its actual performance? Let's make a little exploration today. First, specs. 12th Gen Core i5-1500H, 4P plus AD, 16 threads, 16 gigs dual-channel DDR4 3200 MHz memory, Micron to 45051 2 gigs SSD, PCIe 4.0, 15.6 to 880162 display, 100% P3 120Hz OLED, X-Factory color calibration, 2 display sizes, 14 and 15.6. Price-wise, the reference price is $788, close to last year's VIVOBOOK for an extreme good value display. No other one with OLED display is at such a low price. Next, exterior. It looks like last year's VIVOBOOKs. This one is indie black, another color is neutral gray. Metallic lid, VIVOBOOK plate on the right. The edge of plate is cut and trimmed, more classy than last year's. The damping of hinge is a little high. Can't be opened with one hand. Regular 16:9 display scale. A privacy shutter on top, about 1 inch wide bottom bezel. Plastic base panel and bottom case, power button in the top right corner with different press length. Numpad is retained, but without the rightmost column. The key map has some changes which needs adaptation. 1.4mm key travel, mediocre typing feel. Without backlight, it's inconvenient to use in the dark. Touchpad is a bit large, feels smooth. It got Intel Evo certified, the label is in the bottom left corner. Intel updated the third specification of Evo, adding the support for H-series processors, so Evo laptops can be better this year. And support for AI software is better in business and creation such as AI denoise and speech input, instant translation, and AI Photoshop, etc. Apart from the label on the left of palm rest, there is another sticker on the right. It's so ugly, I have roasted it for many times, hope it would be removed later. Finally, the bottom case, a long pad on the top, the air inlet only has opening to the right fan. It's 19.1 to 19.7 mm high and 1.87 kg heavy, almost Closito all-round laptops with DJU, not good among ultrabooks. For IRO, only one USB 2.0 on the left, on the right, one HDMI 2.0, two Thunderbolt 4, one USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A, and one 3.5mm audio jack, a full line, but the USB 2.0 is obsolete for external high-speed devices. It's average in the exterior, and IRO, maybe the display accounts for the most cost, so let's check it out. It's a high-end display, HDR600 True Black and Pantone certified, which is rare among the $800 laptops. Samsung panel, 122.9% color volume and 99.8% P3 color coverage in actual test, and 97% Adobe RGB coverage, almost covers the three major color gamut completely. About the color accuracy, it has color calibration files and supports color gamut switch in all three standards, average E less than 1, even the highest E between 1.5 - 2. That's great. Besides the color gamut, uniformity is the advantage of OLED. Its uniformity tests are almost green. The highest brightness is 397 nits, the lowest one is 380 nits. While HDR is on, it can reach the highest brightness for 635 nits, and the bit depth increased from 8-bit to 10-bit, which is suitable for HDR. As for dimming, while over 60% brightness, which is 100 nits, it uses DC-like dimming. The dimming rate is 240 Hz. It's different from the common PWM dimming that its duty cycle is high, which means the display is burning in most time, and the influence on the eyes is relatively little. Under 100 nits, it uses regular PWM dimming. Duty cycle will decrease, it's easier to get tired, so I suggest not using it in the dark. Additionally, after turning on HDR, it will transform into full brightness DC-like dimming. OLED has short response time because of single-pixel self-luminous instead of LCD's LC flipping. ASUS says it is 0 point to miss. It's under 1 ms in our test and exceeds instrument accuracy, and almost no smearing in daily use. Certainly, when it comes to OLED, many people may worry about burn-in. ASUS provides pixel-level compensation, default dark mode, auto taskbar concealment, and pixel offset, etc., extending its service life as long as possible. In general, its resolution, refresh rate, and color gamut are all the best at $800 level. OLED's contrast and response are better than IPS, which is important for HDR or dynamic contents. Next, performance CPU first. It has an i5-1-500H processor, 4P, 8 cores, and 16 threads, compared with i7-1-700H, 2P cores less and a little lower clock, and 6 MB less L3 cache. There are 3 versions of H series i5. i5-1-600H is almost the same as i5-1-500H, taking extra feature VRO for commercial need, but i5-1-450H is much weaker than those two. It has only 4 E-cores, 6 MB less L3 cache, and lower clock, so i5-1-500H would be an economical choice for most people. As to benchmark, i5-1-500H got 660 scores in Cinebench R20 single thread, 100 higher than i5-1-140H, and even 50 higher than i9-1-190H. New architecture brings obvious single core boost. Compared with i7-1-700H, performance gap is about 5%. Then the multi-core performance in R20 loop test, it reached 4,565 scores at the first time, and sustained at 4,300 later. It reached 70W and then dipped down to 50 for West and sustained at 45 West. In later rounds, it sustained at 60 West for a while and dropped to 45 West later. P-core was at 3.0 GHz and E-core at 2.4 GHz. Last year's EVO certified Ultrabooks narrowly reached 2,000 scores in benchmark, but this year's Ultrabooks can reach over 4,000. Multi-core performance improved a lot. The CPU package power and IA cores power look similar because system agent power is excluded, which means IRO, PCIe controller, etc. aren't counted in. The actual package power is higher than indication. It's the same in the gaming laptop we tested before. Core power would be more accurate at this time. Next is IGPU. Last gen has only 32 EUs at most, so few IGPU Ultrabooks got H45 processor last year. It needed DJU, but 12th gen H45 processor improved IGPU to the level of low voltage CPU. i7-1-700H has 96 EUs. i5-1-500H has 80 EUs. As to benchmark, 3D Mark Time SPI 1226, V 1657, Superposition Classroom 793, better than i7-11800H, but because of 3200 MHz memory, scores a bit lower than i5-1135G7 with 4266 MHz memory. Now, let's see how it works in practice. This time we introduce a new testing software, Crossmark. It can test the performance in common applications such as office work, photo and video editing, etc. The score of productivity was 1486, creativity 1286, reaction 1495, compared with last year's EVO certified ThinkPad X1 Carbon. Productivity and response speed have some improvements. The creativity point is lower. The reason may lie in IGPU. After all, i7 has 96 EUs, but i5 has only 80 EUs. Next is online games test at 108p CSGO, 100 FPS in lowest settings, Dota 2, 35 FPS in highest settings, so online games would be challenging, which need you to reduce settings. As to Adobe software, the PS score was 731, no problem for light PS work, but without DJU boost, it's not a good choice for AE or PR heavy users. In conclusion, single-core performance of i5-1-500H is great, better than last gen i9 and close to 12th gen i7. For multi-core, it has 2 fewer P-cores but still good enough. IGPU improved a lot, basically the same level as low-voltage CPU, so Ultrabooks may start to use Intel standard voltage processor. It is enough for light office work. Unfortunately, the DDR4 memory could be a bottleneck for IGPU performance and gaming. Okay, next is the disassembly. It's not difficult to do it. Unscrew the bottom case to remove it. You can see it has a small motherboard. It's unoccupied in the middle, so maybe it's extended from a small-sized model. In PC Mark X Modern Office, it lasted 8 hours 22 minutes. I think it's a bit short for such a 70Wh battery. The hard disk is 512 gigs Micron 2450. Good speed, but it dropped to 100 megabytes per second after the cache ran short. 8 gig soldered plus 8 gig slot memory. The highest capacity is 8 plus 32 gigs. One is Micron DDR4 3200 dual rank 8 chips working in SAG-Array mode. This read or write was done under 3200 MHz in latency test. It auto switched to Gear 1 mode without DRAM frequency, much lower than other 12th gen laptops. Wi-Fi card is on the right, Intel AX211, supporting Wi-Fi 6E. Finally, the cooling module. Dual heat pipes and single fan. One heat pipe is thick, the other is thin, 2 exhaust vents. Practical performance, room temperature, 25, performance mode, stress CPU goes first. After 30 minutes, CPU was at 78, P-core 3.7 GHz, E-core 2.8 GHz, IA cores power at 4.4 W, package power at 5.3 W. Next is stress FPU. Temperature and power were basically the same, just the clock dipped down a little. P-core at 3.1 GHz, E-core 2.4 GHz. As to exterior temperature, the hottest F10 key was at 39.7, the middle was around at 37, WASD keys at 32, space key 32.8, left palm 25, so cool. As to bottom temperature, the upper core area was hotter, reached 46.5, central temperature at 37.4. Finally, the noise, it reached 5.9 dB near the machine, which is higher than many gaming laptops. Sounds pretty loud. To sum up, thermal performance of this laptop is uneven. It's well tuned and cooled, but the noise is too loud. Its core temperature is not high, so it still can be optimized. I gave feedback to ASUS about this problem, and person in charge said BIOS would update. May it happen soon. Most consumers will use it in standard mode, so we test it with stress FPU in standard mode. After 30 minutes, core temperature was at 87, power at 35 W, P-core 2.7 GHz, E-core 2.2 GHz. Overall exterior temperature rose a bit. WASD keys reached 34.9 in standard mode, performance reduced, surface temperature rose, but noise dropped to 4.2 dB. It's completely different from performance mode, so I recommend standard mode in daily use, better for work and videos. I'm sure you've learned about this laptop now. As usual, 3 pros and cons for reference. Here are pros. First, good quality display, high resolution, high refresh and wide color gamut. Together with color calibration files, OLED has advantages in contrast and response time. It can still be ranked high among the laptops of $1,600 level. Considering its price, I would say it's top-notch. Second, cooled keyboard. During the stress test, the temperature never reached over 40. WASD and space keys only 32. It feels quite cool in daily use. Third, it has 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports. Hard to see at this price. Today's $800 Ultrabooks usually have 1 Thunderbolt 4, but VIVOBOOK has 2, which is enough. After pros come cons. First, loud fan noise under heavy load. The noise reached 55.9 dB during stress test, even higher than gaming laptops like TUF F15. If you're in a library or an office, the noise could disturb others. I think its fan is too aggressive in performance mode. After all, its core and exterior temperature are not high. It's really unnecessary to reach such speed. Second, SSD performance is average. Micron 2450 has good speed within cache, but only 100 megabytes per second after cache runs short. It's a little slow today. ASUS stopped using Calc last year. I praised it then, but they reuse Calc this year. Looks like they still need criticism. Third, no keyboard backlight, though it is rarely used. This is kind of awkward. I don't think costs should be saved in such aspects. As I think, VIVOBOOK S15 has distinct pros and cons. Top-level display among $800 laptops, good cooling, but cons are also obvious. Micron 2450 memory, loud noise, and low-speed USB 2.0. So its target consumer is clear. Those who have limited budget, ask little for storage and quietness but want a high-quality display. Among mainstream Ultrabooks, the popular ones are those with even specs. Lenovo IdeaPad and Yoga series are typical, but ASUS chooses to make laptops with good value display like VIVOBOOK, giving consumers more choices. As a consumer, I support ASUS, but I hope those flaws could be fixed later. It would be better if we don't have to worry about it. Okay, that's all for this video. If you enjoy this video, please hit like and subscribe. This laptop may be worth it or not, but all we want is to share information and provide guidance. This is BIBA Laptops, and I'm Juan. I'll see you in the next video.